Some people think death is the scariest thing about hospitals. They're wrong. The scariest thing is realizing that sometimes death doesn't actually end anything. I've worked in medicine long enough to know that hospitals aren't just places where people get better or worse. They're places where the impossible becomes routine, where logic takes a back seat to things you can't explain in any medical textbook. And what I'm about to tell you, well, these 3 stories happened at the same hospital, to 3 different people. But they're all connected by something that'll make you question everything you think you know about life and death. But here's the thing that still keeps me up at night. Each person involved swore they were telling the truth. And by the end of their stories, I believed every single word. Story 1. The Goodbye Girl. Look, being a doctor isn't just about saving lives, though that's what they tell you in med school. Sometimes it's about learning to live with the things you can't save, can't fix, can't explain. When I started working at Riverside General Hospital, I thought I had it all figured out. I was young, ambitious, driven, and ready to prove myself to Dr. Harrison, the chief physician, a woman who could spot a mistake from 3 floors away, and had a reputation for making grown doctors cry. I took every night shift I could get. Living alone in a new city meant the hospital became my second home anyway. The patients knew me as Dr. Mitchell, and honestly, I loved the work. There were patients of all ages, but one little girl stood out from everyone else. Her name was Emma, probably the youngest patient we had at the time, and she'd been there since before I even started. Sweet kid, always wandering the halls, chatting with other patients. What struck me most was how she always seemed to be alone. No parents visiting, no family around. She just, existed in that hospital like she belonged there. One night during my rounds, I heard voices coming from room 312. It was way past visiting hours, and all patients should have been asleep. I followed the sound and found the door slightly open. When I pushed it wider and flicked on the lights, there was Emma, standing right next to the bed, smiling at me with this mysterious little grin. "Hello, Dr. Mitchell," she said, calm as anything. Not startled at all by my sudden appearance. "Emma, sweetheart, it's way past your bedtime. What are you doing here?" "Nothing," she replied innocently. "I just came to say goodbye to Mr. Patterson." Mr. Patterson was the patient in 312, elderly gentleman who'd just had major surgery. Even though Emma seemed perfectly normal, I noticed Mr. Patterson looked absolutely terrified. His face was pale as a sheet, and his hands were shaking. "Emma, you can't wander around at night like this. Come on, let's get you back to your room." I turned to Mr. Patterson. "I'll send Nurse Kelly to check on you and give you something to help you sleep. You need your rest." Emma followed me without protest, got into her bed without saying another word. The whole encounter seemed innocent enough. Hell, I barely gave it a second thought, until the next morning. I'd gone home around 4 a.m. after finishing my shift. It was my day off, so I slept like the dead. When I came back the next day, I decided to check on Mr. Patterson, make sure he was feeling better after Emma's late-night visit. But when I opened the door to room 312, there was a completely different patient in the bed. "Excuse me," I called to a passing nurse. "Where's Mr. Patterson, the elderly man who was in this room?" "Oh, you mean the patient from yesterday? He died, doctor, didn't you know?" She looked at me strangely. "He had a massive heart attack. Dr. Williams signed the death certificate. You can ask her for details." The nurse walked away, leaving me standing there like an idiot in the middle of the hallway. And then something clicked. Something that made my blood run cold. When I'd asked Emma what she was doing in Mr. Patterson's room, she'd said she came to say goodbye to him. Not good night, goodbye. Like she knew he was going to die. I found Emma in her room, sitting on her bed, coloring pictures. Without wasting a second, I asked her directly, "Emma, why did you tell Mr. Patterson goodbye last night? Shouldn't you have said goodnight?" Her face went white. She started stammering, I said goodnight. You heard wrong." Then she suddenly looked behind me, like someone was standing there watching her. I spun around immediately, but the hallway was empty. Just a janitor mopping the floor. The whole day I couldn't focus on work. This weird thought kept eating at me. How did Emma know Mr. Patterson was going to die? A week passed and I almost forgot about it. Almost. Then one night during my rounds, I saw Emma coming out of room 428 and walking slowly toward the stairs. Room 428 had just admitted a woman with a severe head injury from a car accident. I went inside to check on her. "How are you feeling tonight, Mrs. Rodriguez?" "A bit dizzy, doctor, but I'm okay." She paused. "Did someone visit me before you came?" My heart started racing. "Yes. Did a little girl come to see you?" "That's right, sweet child. Said her name was Emma, but I think she made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "Well, she said goodbye to me. I think she meant to say goodnight, you know." Strange, right? I couldn't sleep that night. Deep down, I knew what was coming. And sure enough, Mrs. Rodriguez passed away the next morning. After 2 more incidents exactly like this, I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. I went straight to the reception desk and asked Linda, our receptionist, "How long has Emma been a patient here?" Linda looked at me confused. "Who's Emma?" "A little girl in the pediatric ward. You know, the one who's always wandering around talking to patients." "Dr. Mitchell, we don't have any patient named Emma. There aren't even any child patients admitted right now." "Are you feeling all right?" "What are you talking about?" "I've been talking to this girl for weeks. Check the records. She's in the children's wing." "Mitchell, come to my office now." I turned around and saw Chief Harrison standing behind me, her face pale as paper. I followed her with my head spinning, trying to make sense of what Linda had just told me. We sat down in her office, and Dr. Harrison spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "Tell me about Emma. What does she look like? Does she seem ... happy?" "What? Dr. Harrison, what's going on?" "Linda just told me there's no patient by that name, and now you're asking me about her like you know who she is." Dr. Harrison couldn't control herself anymore. She started crying, not just tearing up, but full-on sobbing. After a few minutes, she looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "Emma is my daughter." My world stopped spinning. "The week before you started working here, I brought her to the hospital with me. Her father was supposed to pick her up, but I was running late with surgeries. She was playing in the halls, like she always did when she visited. She loved running up and down the staircases, ... Dr. Harrison's voice broke. "Somehow, she slipped on the stairs between the 3rd and 2nd floor. We admitted her here immediately, but her injuries were too severe. She died that same night. I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. Emma was dead. Had been dead this whole time. I've seen her too," Dr. Harrison continued. "Wandering the halls at night. I kept telling myself I was losing my mind, but now, you're the second person who can see her." She suddenly stood up and turned off all the lights in her office. "Tell me, Dr. Mitchell, can you see her now?" I was absolutely terrified, but I forced myself to look around the dark room. That's when I heard it, a small voice, right behind my neck. "Goodbye, Dr. Mitchell. Story 2. The truth behind the lies." Hello everyone, I'm Sarah, and I work as a nurse at Riverside General. Hospitals are quiet, yet real places, visited only in the most difficult times. When patients recover, we feel it's proof that we've done our job well, and the smiles on their faces are our reason for working. When they die, we mourn with their families. Over time, nurses learn to cope with even the most difficult situations, but when this happened, I was new to the hospital. I'd only been working there for a few months. I was assigned to the emergency ward, so we got everything you could imagine. Teenage girls who'd cut their wrists over their first heartbreak, men involved in car accidents, people who'd gotten into bar fights, those who questioned life like crazy. These cases were pretty routine for us. But this one case, it'll never leave my mind. There was a 14-year-old boy named Marcus who got admitted after a suicide attempt. His family brought him in covered in blood. Apparently, Marcus had been sitting in the park with his friends when he suddenly got up and ran straight into traffic, threw himself right in front of a speeding delivery truck. The impact was devastating. He suffered massive head trauma and multiple fractures throughout his body. His parents were crying and screaming the entire time. A team of 3 doctors and 3 nurses, including me, performed his surgery. But due to the severe blood loss and shock, Marcus slipped into what we call a vegetative state, complete unconsciousness with some eye-opening and periods of wakefulness. Everyone in the hospital felt terrible for this kid and his family. I was assigned to monitor him regularly. His body just lay there on the bed, eyes always open, staring at the ceiling. The only time I knew he was truly alive was when he'd close his eyes to sleep. Those random eye movements used to creep me out sometimes. Like this one time, I was sitting next to him after dinner, reading him a story. His eyes stayed closed the whole time, and I thought he'd fallen asleep. So I got up and turned off the bedside lamp. But then I remembered I'd left my phone on his nightstand, so I went back and flicked the light back on to grab it. The moment that light came on, Marcus's eyes were wide open, staring directly at me, being face to face with that kind of intense eye contact in the middle of the night. Yeah, that definitely freaked me out. These kinds of incidents happened regularly. But the mystery that really haunted me was why Marcus had tried to take his own life in the first place. Slowly, we started noticing improvements in Marcus's motor skills. The doctors were thrilled to see such rapid recovery. They assured his parents that maybe within a few months, Marcus would regain full consciousness. His mother came to visit almost every other day. One afternoon, I was updating his medication chart when 3 school boys around Marcus's age entered the room, followed by an average height man wearing glasses and formal clothes. I figured he must be a teacher, and these were Marcus's school friends. The boys talked to Marcus and wished him well. The teacher sat down next to him and held his hand. The moment he did that, I noticed Marcus's heart rate spike on the monitor. "Oh, Marcus," the man said in a soft, caring voice. "We all miss you so much. Get well soon, son. We're all waiting for you." My heart broke watching his friends and teachers show such care. But within 10 minutes of them leaving, Marcus's heartbeat started racing rapidly. Within seconds, his body began convulsing violently on the bed. He was having a severe seizure. Doctors rushed in with emergency medication and managed to stabilize him. I spent the entire night in his room, watching him with wide, worried eyes. We had to suspend visiting hours indefinitely. Another shock or seizure like that could have caused cardiac arrest. After a week, we finally allowed his mother to visit again. She begged us to let her stay overnight in his room, even though it was against hospital policy. Seeing this poor mother's desperation, we had to bend the rules just this once. I decided to stay with them too. Like always, there was a small couch in the room. Mrs. Thompson sat there while I took the chair nearby. Around 2:30 a.m., I got up to grab some coffee from the machine down the hall. Marcus's eyes were closed, and Mrs. Thompson had also dozed off on the couch. I didn't want to wake her. The coffee machine was just down the corridor. I pressed the button and watched the hot coffee start pouring into my cup. That's when I heard the most spine-chilling scream I've ever heard in my life. I ran immediately toward the sound. It was coming from room 1205, Marcus's room. I grabbed the door handle and twisted, but no matter how hard I tried, it wouldn't budge. The screaming inside was Mrs. Thompson, and she was in terrible pain. "Mrs. Thompson, why did you lock the door? Open it. What's happening in there?" I couldn't wait and called for doctors immediately. The maintenance staff came running with a spare key. The moment they got that door open, we witnessed something absolutely horrific. Marcus had somehow broken the window of this 4th-floor room with his still-casted hand. He was also beating his mother viciously. Mrs. Thompson was bleeding from her face and nose, but she was still holding on to Marcus tightly, screaming, "No, I won't let you jump. Please, Marcus, no." He was going completely insane, throwing her around like a rag doll, trying to get to that broken window so he could jump out. And the things coming out of his mouth, the most obscene, vile language I've ever heard from a teenager. The doctors grabbed him while he kicked and screamed at the top of his lungs. Another nurse took Mrs. Thompson away to treat her wounds. For a moment, I just stood there like a statue, unable to process what I'd just witnessed. "Sarah, come here and help me with this injection." Dr. Stanley's voice snapped me back to reality. The incident of Marcus waking up from a vegetative state and immediately becoming extremely violent left our entire hospital in shock. Our mental health team was called in to evaluate his suicidal tendencies. Marcus showed continuous episodes of rage and violence. We had to keep his hands restrained so he couldn't hurt himself. His injuries were still in critical condition, which meant we couldn't transfer him to a psychiatric facility yet. Police came and, with a psychiatrist present, conducted several interviews to understand why he was so desperate to end his life. After 4 or 5 sessions, Marcus finally opened up. He claimed that his teacher, Mr. Coleman, had been physically abusing him. The day before he tried to commit suicide, something terrible had happened with this man. I couldn't believe it. That was the same guy who'd visited Marcus that day, the one who'd seemed so caring and concerned. Now I understood why Marcus's pulse had skyrocketed when that man touched his hand. Police eventually arrested Mr. Coleman, but the man kept insisting he was innocent, claiming that Marcus was the one who had seduced him. However, investigators found inappropriate photos of Marcus on the teacher's computer. Marcus testified that Mr. Coleman had been blackmailing him, threatening to post these pictures online if he told anyone. Marcus also revealed that this man had abused another boy from their school. That boy, named David, also came forward to testify against Mr. Coleman. We all celebrated the day Mr. Coleman was sent to prison. A week later, Marcus was discharged. His parents were finishing the paperwork at the front desk while he sat in a wheelchair. I walked over to him and said, "You've been incredibly brave, Marcus. Never hurt yourself because of someone else again, okay?" He looked at me with this hopeless expression in his eyes. "Hey, you're finally going home to your family. You should be smiling," I tried to encourage him. He looked at me blankly and said, "Thank you for everything." His father came and wheeled him toward the car. I was about to head back to the office when I heard a phone notification. There was a cell phone lying on the nearby counter. I picked it up and read the strangest text message. "I did what you told me to do. The day I heard you blackmailing Mr. Coleman to give you good grades and nominate you for that scholarship. I knew it was you he was having an affair with. I felt disgusted falling in love with a guy like you. But we're done now. You blackmailed me too with those private pictures you took. I want them back." Before I could even process what this meant, I heard a voice behind me. "Sorry, Nurse Sarah, I forgot my phone. Can I have it back?" I turned around to see Mrs. Thompson extending her hand toward me. My heart dropped into my stomach. I handed the phone back to her, and she started walking away. I slowly made my way to the exit and noticed Marcus sitting in the back seat of their car, typing on the phone he'd just gotten back from his mother. As their car engine started, he looked at me one final time through the window and smiled from ear to ear. Story 3. When the Dead Don't Rest. I worked as cleaning staff at Riverside General Hospital. You get used to seeing people arrive in the worst possible condition. But this one patient will haunt me forever. His name was Robert, and he was admitted to our burn unit. I heard that one night, his house caught fire while he and his wife were sleeping in their bedroom. By the time they realized the danger, half the house was already engulfed in flames. Robert was rescued by neighbors and rushed to our hospital, but his wife Diana died in that fire. People said she was so severely burned that her flesh literally melted off her bones. Robert's left arm and left leg had serious injuries, but overall, his condition was treatable. Among all the rooms in the hospital, his was the only one that made my skin crawl every time I had to clean it. I could barely stand the smell of burnt flesh, and not just that, his room always felt unnaturally cold, even when the heating was working perfectly. Robert was heavily sedated with painkillers most of the time. The amount of pain burn victims go through is indescribable. One time, I was assigned to work the night shift. Honestly, I preferred night shifts. I could work peacefully while all the patients slept. It was around 1:30 a.m. when I went to mop the floors in Robert's room. As I entered, I saw this horrifying figure standing in the middle of the room, sobbing. It was Robert, but seeing his burnt arm and leg made him look like something from a nightmare. He was staring at the dark corner of the wall and whispering in the creepiest voice, Why are you doing this to me? What more do you want from me? Please, I beg you, leave me alone." "Hey Robert, is everything all right?" He turned to look at me, and I saw pure terror in his eyes. Then he pointed at that dark corner and said, "Tell her to go away. She keeps coming back. Isn't she supposed to stay dead?" "What are you talking about, Robert?" "Diana, my wife. She keeps coming back for me." Then he just collapsed on the floor. I was so shocked and terrified that for a moment, I forgot I needed to call for doctors and nurses. When I finally did, they came rushing to his room. Everyone was amazed that Robert had managed to get out of bed on his own, given his painful condition. From that night on, every time I had to clean Robert's room, I was absolutely terrified. I knew there had to be a logical explanation for everything. But trust me, when you're standing in that dark room in the middle of the night, hearing nothing but Robert's heavy breathing, you can't help wondering if his dead wife really is standing in that corner, watching you. A few days passed, and Robert's condition got worse. He started showing signs of severe trauma and paranoia. Many times I could hear screaming coming from his room, and see doctors and nurses rushing there to calm him down. I changed my shift just to avoid his room, but life had different plans for me. One morning, my supervisor called and said they were willing to pay me double if I worked the night shift as well. Who doesn't need extra money? So I agreed, especially since I'd have the next day off to recover. I went home and took a short nap before returning for the night shift. My head was clear enough to know that what I saw that night was real. After cleaning 5 or 6 rooms, I decided to take a break before finishing the rest. I went to the empty cafeteria to grab a drink from the vending machine. That's when I heard footsteps echoing down the distant corridor. I looked up and saw Robert standing at the far end of the hallway. His arm and leg were still covered in burn wound dressings, and half of his face was scarred from the fire. "Hey Robert, what's going on? Are you all right? You should go back to your room." I was getting really disturbed seeing Robert like this. He was staring at me like a statue, breathing in this terrifying, ragged way. "Robert, you're scaring me. Why don't you? She won't rest until she kills me." "Come on, Robert, not again. No, she's telling me right now. She's standing right behind you, telling me to, ... I turned around and saw no one, but this eerie chill ran down my spine. What Robert did next was the most horrifying thing I've ever witnessed in my life. He pulled out a surgical scalpel and started cutting the flesh off his own lips. Blood began dripping onto the white hospital floor, but he didn't stop there. He started chewing his own lips, and that sickening munching sound made me want to vomit. He screamed in agony while chewing his own flesh. "Are you happy now? Are you? You're angry because I lived, huh? Fine, I'm ending this. I'm ending everything now." Then Robert started stabbing himself in the chest with that scalpel. It was a complete bloodbath. Doctors and nurses came running, and he was rushed to the ICU immediately, but he didn't survive. I don't know why, but I genuinely believe Robert saw his wife's ghost that night. Sometimes people who die with unfinished business or intense emotions come back to their loved ones, and in some cases, they haunt them until death. What do you think really happened to Robert?